Right, so it really does come to something when Labour has become too toxic under Keir Starmer's leadership that a Labour MP, within the first 100 days of taking office and forming a government, has resigned because the governing party is poison. But that is exactly what Labour MP for Canterbury Rosie Duffield has done. Now, Duffield is no leftie, not by a long shot. There was even talk of her defecting to the Tories at one point. And she certainly had no problem with Starmer turning on Corbyn or supporting Israel in the Middle East. So it doesn't say much that a right-winger like her has suddenly found Labour too nasty and too cruel, ostensibly off the back of Starmer accepting so much in the way of free clothes for her to not be able to stand to be part of the party a moment longer. When we still haven't had any of the supposed left actually leave themselves, it's a pretty poor reflection on them right now too. Duffield is probably best known for her vile views concerning matters around transgender issues, so nobody should be lionising her for walking the walk and for calling out what we on the left have all known for quite some time, that Keir Starmer is a massive wrong-un. Quite honestly, Duffield should have had the whip removed ages ago for her conduct, not given the dignity of resigning. Yet this is where we are, and the damage to Starmer, when it is one of supposedly his own faction that have walked now, arguably does more damage to his reputation and impacts his leadership a good deal more as a result than the left would have been if any of them had gone. And deservedly so, in my view. Right, so Rosie Duffield, the Labour MP for Canterbury, has quit the Labour Party with a scathing resignation letter which utterly damns Keir Starmer, his leadership, his decisions and his conduct. It's one of the most damning resignation letters, frankly, I think I've ever read. Where Starmer will possibly be reeling from one of his own faction, as Duffield ostensibly was, having turned on him, although it's par for the course amongst right-wingers, I would have said. Perhaps a good example, not just that Starmer is himself right-wing, though, but just how far he has lurked to the right, clearly too far for some. None will be celebrating her departure from the Labour Party. I imagine quite a lot of LGBTQ+ members of the party will be cheering her going, because Duffield to them has just been anathema. She has described trans women, for example, as male-bodied and has gone on record as having said such women shouldn't have access to domestic violence shelters, women's prisons or single-sex toilets. She's also come in for severe criticism for her friendship with anti-trans activist J.K. Rowling. Frankly, the less said on this, the better. The views are appalling. Being trans is a protected characteristic, and how people choose to identify themselves is up to them and nobody else. Freedom of expression, folks. Do you believe in it or not? So, for as much as many of us might enjoy the fact this is hugely damaging to Keir Starmer, the fact it is Duffield of all people who has gone is not really a cause to celebrate. She should have been sent packing ages ago. Nevertheless, her resignation letter, as I said, really is quite something. Really not sure I've ever read anything as scathing as this one, and as such is worth the effort of reproducing in full. Dear Sir Keir, usually letters like this begin, "It is with a heavy heart." Mine has been increasingly heavy and conflicted and has longed for a degree of relief. I can no longer stay a Labour MP under your management of the party, and this letter is my notice that I wish to resign the Labour Party whip with immediate effect. Although many last straws have led to my decision, my reason for leaving now is the programme of policies you seem determined to stick to, however unpopular they are with the electorate and your own MPs. You repeat often that you will make the tough decisions and that the country is all in this together. But those decisions do not directly affect any one of us in Parliament. They are cruel and unnecessary and affect hundreds of thousands of our poorest, most vulnerable constituents. This is not what I was elected to do. It is not even wise politics, and it certainly is not the politics of service. I did not vote for you to lead our party for reasons I won't describe in details here, but as someone elevated immediately to a shadow cabinet position without following the usual path of honing your political skills on the back benches, you had very little previous political footprint. It was therefore unclear what your political passions, drive or direction might be as the leader of the Labour Party. A large movement of people united by a desire for social justice and support for those most in need. You also made the choice not to speak up once about the Labour Party's problems with anti-Semitism during your time in the shadow cabinet, leaving that to backbenchers, including new MPs such as me. Since you took office as leader of the opposition, you have used various heavy-handed management tactics, but have never shown what most experienced backbenchers would recognise as true or inspiring leadership. You have never regularly engaged with your own backbench MPs, many of whom have been in Parliament far longer than you, and some of whom served in the previous Labour government. You have chosen neither to seek our individual political opinions, nor learn about our constituency experiences, nor our specific or collective areas of political knowledge. We clearly have nothing you deem to be of value. Your promotion of those with no proven political skills and no previous parliamentary experience, but who happen to be related to those close to you or even each other, is frankly embarrassing. In particular, the recent treatment of Diane Abbott, now Mother of the House, was deeply shameful and led to comments from voters across the political spectrum. A woman of her political stature and place in history is deserving of respect and support, regardless of political differences. As Prime Minister, your managerial and technocratic approach and lack of basic politics and political instincts have come crashing down on us as a party after we worked so hard, promised so much, and waited a long 14 years to be mandated by the British public to return to power. Since the change of government in July, the revelations of hypocrisy have been staggering and increasingly outrageous. I cannot put into words how angry I and my colleagues are at your total lack of understanding about how you have made us all appear. How dare you take our longed-for victory, the electorate's sacred and precious trust, and throw it back in their individual faces and the faces of dedicated and hard-working Labour MPs. The sleaze, nepotism and apparent avarice are off the scale. I am so ashamed of what you and your inner circle have done to tarnish and humiliate our once proud party. Someone with far above average wealth choosing to keep the Conservatives' two-child limit to benefit payments, which entrenches children in poverty, while inexplicably accepting expensive personal gifts of designer suits and glasses, costing more than most of these people can grasp, this is entirely undeserving of holding the title of Labour Prime Minister. Forcing a vote to make many older people iller and colder, while you and your favourite colleagues enjoy free family trips to events most people would have to save hard for. Why are you not showing even the slightest bit of embarrassment or remorse? I now have no confidence in your commitment to deliver the so-called change you promised during the general election campaign and the changes we have been striving for as a political party for over a decade. My values are those of a democratic socialist Labour Party, and I have been elected 3 times to act on those values on behalf of my constituents. Canterbury made history when its voters elected their first woman and only non-Conservative MP since the seat was created in the 13th century. My constituents elected an independent-minded MP who vowed to put constituency before party and to keep tackling the issues that most affect us here. Brexit fallout, funding for our universities, our desperately struggling East Kent NHS, dire housing situation, repeated sewage pollution and protecting our vital green spaces. I am confident that I can continue to do so as an independent MP guided by my core Labour values. Sadly, the Labour Party has never shown any interest in my wonderful constituency in the 7 years that I have been in Parliament, but I am proud of my community and will continue to serve them to the best of my ability. My constituents care deeply about social issues such as child poverty and helping those who cannot help themselves. I will continue to uphold those values as I pledged to do when I first stood before them for election in 2017. As someone who joined a trade union in my first job at 17, Labour has always been my natural political home. I was elected as a single mum, a former teaching assistant in receipt of tax credits. The Labour Party was formed to speak for those of us without a voice, and I stood for election partly because I saw decisions about the lives of those like me being made in Westminster by only the most privileged few. Right now, I cannot look my constituents in the eye and tell them that anything has changed. I hope to be able to return to the party in the future when it again resembles the party I love, putting the needs of the many before the greed of the few. Yours sincerely, Rosie Duffield MP. Starmer's cheeks, the rear ones, should be on fire after that burn. I did note the Corbyn-esque ending to her little diatribe there, for the many, not the few. Frankly, Duffield should get those words out of her flaming mouth, considering her own attacks on Corbyn. And of course, she did enter Parliament, won her seat for the first time as one of those seats Corbyn won in 2017, when he so nearly beat Theresa May. The right wing of the Labour Party sabotaged that. The likes of Starmer and his clique, for whom control and power of the Labour Party is all that matters to them. They don't know what to do with it now they've got it, now they're in government, doesn't matter to them really. That isn't to say Duffield didn't do a good job of laying bare every one of Keir Starmer's shortcomings, and who better to lay them out actually than an MP who has known him since she came into Parliament. He only preceded her into Parliament by 2 years after all. But all of it rings true as well. He has never apologised for anything, let alone rubbing over £100,000 worth of freebies in people's faces as he chooses to leave kids in poverty and sentences pensioners to freeze this winter. And if you protest against any of that, he'll clear out real criminals to lock you up. His own bills will be paid, not just because he's on a massive wage, not just because he can claim energy costs on expenses, but he's also already a multi-millionaire and wants for nothing. He's also a political pygmy, utterly reliant on having his hand held by the likes of his advisers from Morgan McSweeney to Peter Mandelson or Sue Gray, but held up in many policy areas by other MPs, either through his own ignorance, such as his weak grasp of economics, or because he simply lacks any interest, such as with the environment. Within 100 days, despite a supermajority, Starmer's Labour is cracking up. He's not going to last long. In fact, rumours about something big coming next week, which may well finish him. Bookies already taking odds on who will replace him as PM. So did Duffield jump early unnecessarily? Maybe. But who bloody cares that she's gone anyway? Adding to unnecessary and ill thought through attacks on ordinary working class people comes one subject matter Duffield didn't cover in her resignation, and that's massive hikes coming on tuition fees again. Starmer's hit the very young in their bellies, the elderly in their warmth, and now young adults are set to cop it for wanting further education Starmer, of course, will have enjoyed for free. The point keeps getting proven that this is no Labour Party. Get all the details of Starmer's latest attack on the working class in this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.